It is the secret of making the universe respond to your desires, of shaping reality itself through the power of your imagination. Now I know what some of you may be thinking. Neville, you might say, how can this be possible? How can my mere thoughts and imaginings affect the solid, tangible world around me? And to that I say, not only is it possible, it is the very foundation of all creation, the bedrock upon which our entire existence is built. You see, my dear friends, the world you perceive around you, the chair you're sitting on, the air you're breathing, the thoughts of the person next to you, all of it is nothing more than a reflection of your own consciousness. The universe in all its infinite wisdom and glory is responding moment by moment to the state of your imagination, to the assumptions you hold about yourself and the world. Let me be clear, when I speak of imagination, I'm not referring to idle daydreams or fleeting fantasies. No, I am speaking of something far more profound, far more fundamental to your being. Your imagination, properly understood and applied, is your very self. It is God in action within you. It is in essence the creative power of the universe focused through the lens of your individual consciousness. Now I can see the skepticism in some of your eyes. You're wondering if this is true. Why isn't my life perfect? Why do I face challenges and setbacks? And to that I say, because you are yet fully awakened to your true nature, to the immense power that lies dormant within you. You see, most people go through life believing they are at the mercy of external circumstances. They believe that their lives are shaped by forces beyond their control, by their upbringing, their environment, their genes, or even by some capricious deity who doles out blessings and curses at will. But I am here to tell you with absolute certainty that nothing could be further from the truth. You, my dear friends, are the operant power in your life. You are the one who shapes your reality, who determines your fate. And you do this not through your actions in the outer world, but through the states you occupy in your imagination. Now let me explain what I mean by states. A state is a mindset, a way of being, a particular arrangement of your consciousness. When you embody a state, be it one of wealth, health, love, or success, you are in that moment, that very thing. And here's the crucial point. The outer world has no choice but to conform to the state you have assumed. This, my friends, is the law that governs all creation. It is immutable, unchanging, and it operates with perfect precision in every moment of your existence. The world is nothing more than a mirror, faithfully reflecting back to you the state you have assumed. But here's where most people stumble. They look at their current circumstances, at the limitations and lack in their lives, and they assume that this is their reality. They accept it as an unchangeable fact, not realizing that by doing so, they are perpetuating those very conditions. You see, the secret to changing your life, to making the universe respond, lies in your ability to disregard the evidence of your senses and instead live from the end. What do I mean by this? I mean that you must have the courage and the imagination to see your desires already fulfilled, to experience in your mind the joy and satisfaction of your wish realized. This, my friends, is the art of assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. It is the cornerstone of all successful manifestation, the key that unlocks the infinite potential of your imagination. Now, I can hear some of you thinking, but Neville, how can I possibly feel something that isn't true? How can I convince myself of a reality that doesn't exist? And to that I say, you are already doing it every moment of your life. Every belief you hold, every assumption you make about yourself and the world is nothing more than an act of imagination that you have accepted as truth. The only difference is that most people imagine unconsciously, allowing their minds to be shaped by past experiences and current circumstances. But you, my dear friends, have the power to imagine consciously, to deliberately choose the states you will occupy. Let me give you an example to illustrate this point. Imagine a man who desires wealth. He looks at his current bank balance, at the bills piling up on his desk, and he feels poor. He walks down the street, sees luxury cars and expensive shops, and he feels lack. In every moment he is affirming his poverty, he is assuming the state of being poor. Now contrast this with a man who understands the power of imagination. This man regardless of his current circumstances, chooses to assume the state of wealth. When he walks down that same street, he doesn't see things he can't afford. He sees evidence of abundance that is already his. When he looks at his bills, he feels gratitude for the services he's received and the ability to pay for them. In his imagination, he feels the crisp texture of large bills in his wallet. He experiences the peace of mind that comes with financial security. He savors the freedom to live as he chooses, to help others, to pursue his passions without concern for money. Which of these men do you think is more likely to manifest actual wealth in the outer world? The answer, of course, is clear. The universe can only respond to the state you occupy, to the assumptions you hold about yourself and your place in the world. Now, I want to address a common misconception. Some of you might be thinking, but Neville, isn't this just positive thinking? Isn't this just fooling myself? And to that I say, absolutely not. What I'm describing goes far beyond mere positive thinking or affirmations. You see, positive thinking operates on the level of the conscious mind. It's an attempt to override negative thoughts with more positive ones. But the power I'm speaking of, the power to make the universe respond, operates at a much deeper level. It's not about thinking positively, it's about being positively. When you truly assume a state in your imagination, when you occupy it fully, you are not fooling yourself. You are in that moment actually becoming the person who has what you desire. You are shifting your entire consciousness, aligning yourself with the reality you wish to experience. This is why simply repeating affirmations or visualizing your desires often falls short. These techniques can be useful, but they're not enough on their own. To truly change your life, to make the universe respond, you must feel the reality of your desire. You must experience it so vividly in your imagination. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. But Neville, you might say, I've tried this. I've imagined what I want. I've tried to feel it real, but nothing has changed. And to that I say persistence is key. Remember, you are undoing a lifetime of habitual thinking and feeling. You are dismantling deeply ingrained beliefs about yourself and the world. This is not always an easy process. It requires dedication, it requires faith, and above all, it requires persistence. You must be willing to maintain your assumed state, even when all evidence points to the contrary. You must have courage to disregard the world of shadows and live fully in the world of imagination. Let me share with you a story that illustrates this point. I once knew a woman who desperately wanted to be married. She had been single for years, and despite her best efforts, she couldn't seem to find the right partner. She came to me frustrated and disheartened, asking for help. I instructed her to imagine every night before sleep that she was already married to the perfect partner. I told her to feel the ring on her finger, to experience the warmth of her lover's embrace, to hear the words of love and commitment whispered in her ear. At first she found this difficult. Her loneliness and frustration kept intruding on her imaginal scene, but she persisted. Night after night she lived in her imagination as a happily married woman, and slowly something began to change. She noticed that she felt different during the day. She carried herself with more confidence. She interacted with men differently, free from the desperation that had previously colored her interactions. And then, seemingly out of nowhere, she met someone. The relationship blossomed quickly, and within a year she was married to a man who matched perfectly the one she had been imagining. Now, some might call this a coincidence, but I assure you it was anything but. This woman had changed her state, had shifted her consciousness, and the universe had no choice but to respond in kind. This, my dear friends, is the power that lies within each and every one of you. The power to shape your reality, to mold the universe itself through the power of your imagination. But let me be clear, this is not about controlling others or manipulating external circumstances. The only thing you can ever change is yourself. But when you change yourself, when you shift your state, when you assume a new way of being, the entire world reshapes itself to match your new self-concept. Now, I want to address another important point. Some of you might be wondering, but Neville, about action. Don't we need to do something in the outer world to make our desires a reality? And to that I say, inspired action will flow naturally from your assumed state. You see, when you truly occupy a state of the wish fulfilled, When you live from the end, your actions in the outer world will naturally align with your desire. You won't have to force yourself to take action. You won't have to push against resistance. Instead, you'll find yourself naturally drawn to take the right actions at the right time. This is because your outer world is nothing more than an expression of your inner state. When you change your state, your perception changes and new opportunities become visible to you. Doors that were previously closed suddenly open. People and circumstances that can help you achieve your desire are drawn into your life, as if by magic. But remember, the action is not the cause of your manifestation, it is the result. The true cause is always the state you occupy in your imagination. This is why two people can take the same actions in the outer world and achieve vastly different results. It's not the action itself that determines the outcome, but the state from which the action springs. Now let's delve deeper into the mechanics of how this process works. Using your subconscious mind, which is really your connection to the infinite intelligence of the universe, doesn't distinguish between what you imagine vividly and what you experience in the outer world. To your subconscious, they are one and the same. This is why your imaginal acts are so powerful. When you imagine something vividly, when you occupy a state fully in your imagination, your subconscious accepts it as reality. And once your subconscious accepts something as real, it goes to work to make it so in your outer world. This is not some mystical or supernatural process, as it's simply the way consciousness operates. Your consciousness is the only reality. What you assume to be true, what you believe in the depths of your being, must be expressed in your outer world. This is an inviolable law of consciousness. Now, I want to address a question that often arises when I speak about these principles. Some of you might be wondering, but Neville, what about other people? How can my imagination affect them? And to that I say, there are no others. I know this might sound strange, even solipsistic, but bear with me. You see, the people in your life, the circumstances you encounter, are all of you pushed out. They are reflections of your consciousness, expressions of your assumptions and beliefs. This doesn't mean that other people don't exist or that they don't have free will, but it does mean that your experience of them, your interactions with them, are shaped by your consciousness. Change your consciousness and your experience of others will change too. Let me give you an example to illustrate this point. Imagine a man who believes that people are generally unfriendly, unhelpful. As he goes about his day, he encounters people who seem to confirm this belief. The cashier at the store is curt with him. His co-workers are distant strangers on the street, avoid eye contact. Now imagine this same man decides to change his assumption. He begins to imagine that people are friendly and eager to help. He feels this new assumption as true. He occupies this new state fully in his imagination. And suddenly his experiences begin to change. The same cashier smiles and strikes up a friendly conversation. His co-workers become more open and collaborative. Strangers on the street offer warm smiles. Has the world suddenly changed? Have all these people suddenly become different? Of course not. What has changed is the man's consciousness. And as a result, his perception and experience of the world has shifted. This, my dear friends, is the true power of your imagination. It's not just about manifesting material things or achieving specific goals. It's about shaping your entire experience of reality. It's about becoming the proton to be, about living in the world you want to inhabit. Now I want to address another important aspect of this work. Some of you might be wondering about the role of desire in this process. You might be asking, Neville, where do our desires come from? And how do we know which desires to pursue? To that I say, your desires are not random. They are not arbitrary whims, fancies. Your desires are messages from your higher self, from the God within you. They are invitations to grow, to expand, to more fully express your divine nature. When you feel a genuine desire, not a selfish want, but a deep, heartfelt longing, that is God's way of telling you what's possible for you. It's a preview of a potential reality that you have the power to manifest. This is why it is so important to honor your desires, to take them seriously. When you dismiss your desires as impossible or unworthy, you are turning your back on your own divinity. You are rejecting the gift that the universe is offering you. But here's the crucial point. The fulfillment of your desire is not the ultimate goal. The real purpose of your desire is to lead you to a new state of being, to a new level of consciousness. The outer manifestation is simply a guide you have successfully shifted your state. This is why it's so important to focus on the feeling of the wish fulfilled, rather than on the specific details of how it will come about. When you imagine your desire is fulfilled, when you occupy that state fully, you are aligning yourself with the essence of what you want. And often the universe will surprise you by bringing your desire to pass in ways far more wonderful than you could have planned. Now, I want to address a common concern that arises when people begin to work with these principles. Some of you might be thinking, but Neville, what if I imagine something and it doesn't happen? What if I assume a state and nothing changes? To that I say, have patience and above all have faith. Remember, you are working with the very substance of the universe. You are engaging with the fundamental laws of creation. This is not always an instantaneous process. Sometimes the seed you plant in your imagination will sprout quickly, manifesting in your outer world in a matter of days or weeks. Other times it may take longer. But make no mistake, once you have planted that seed, once you have truly occupied a state in your imagination, the wheels of creation are set in motion. Your manifestation is inevitable, as long as you maintain your faith and persist in your assumption. This is where many people falter. They imagine their desire, they try to feel it real, but when they don't see immediate results, they give up. They return to their old state, their old assumptions, and then wonder why nothing has changed. But I assure you, my dear friends, that every imaginal act you perform is fruitful. Every state you occupy leaves its mark on your subconscious. Even if you don't see immediate results, trust that your imagination is doing its work. Trust that the universe is rearranging itself to match your new set. This trust, this unwavering faith is crucial. You must have faith in the law, faith in the power of your imagination. But more than that, you must have faith in yourself, in your divine nature, in your ability to create your reality. Now let's talk about how to practically apply these principles in your daily life. The first step is to choose your state. What is it that you truly desire? What kind of person do you want to be? What kind of life do you want to live? Once you've identified your desire, create a scene that implies its fulfillment. This scene should be short, simple, and easy to repeat. It should capture the essence of your desire, the feeling of it being realized. For example, if your desire is for a loving relationship, you might imagine hearing a loved one say, "I'm so happy we're together." Feel the warmth of their embrace, the love in their voice. Make it as vivid and real as possible. If your desire is for financial abundance, you might imagine looking at your bank statement and seeing a balance that thrills you. Feel the sense of security, the freedom that comes with financial abundance. Whatever you're seeing, the key is to make it feel real. Engage all your senses. Don't just see it, hear it, feel it, smell it. Taste it if appropriate. The more real you can make it in your imagination, the more powerful it will be. Now here's the crucial part. You must enter this scene as if it were happening now, not as a future event, not as something you hope will happen, but as a present reality. You must feel the naturalness of it, the sense that, of course, this is your reality. I recommend practicing this imaginal scene every night as you fall asleep. You see, sleep is a powerful time for impressing your subconscious mind. As you drift off to sleep, your conscious mind relaxes its hold, allowing your imaginal scene to sink deep into your subconscious. But don't limit yourself to nighttime. Throughout your day, whenever one moment, return to your scene. Feel the reality of it. Let the feeling of your wish fulfilled permeate your entire being. Now I want to address another important point. Some of you might be wondering about negative thoughts and doubts. You might be asking, Neville, what if I can't stop my negative thoughts? What if I doubt whether this will work? To that I say, don't fight your negative thoughts. Don't try to force them away. Instead, simply return to your imaginal scene. Return to the feeling of your wish fulfilled. You see, what you resist persists. but what you accept and then replace fades away. Your negative thoughts or doubts are simply habits of mind. They are old states that you've occupied for so long that they feel natural to you. But remember, you have the power to choose your state. You have the power to decide what you would accept as real. When doubts arise, when negative thoughts intrude, simply acknowledge them and then gently return to your chosen state. Say to yourself, there's that old thought again. But I know the truth. I know what's real. And then immerse yourself once more in the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Over time, as you persist in your new state, these old thoughts and doubts will fade away. They'll lose their power over you. You'll find it easier and easier to maintain your chosen state, to live from the end. Now let's talk about something that many people struggle with, letting go. You see, there's a seeming paradox in this work. On one hand, you must live from the state of your wish fulfilled, feeling it as real and present. On the other hand, you must let go of attachment to the outcome. This can be challenging. How can you feel something as real and yet not be attached to it? The key is to understand that your job is not to make your desire happen. Your job is simply to occupy the state. The manifestation, the outer fulfillment, is not your concern. That's the job of the universe. When you truly live from the end, when you fully occupy your desired state, you no longer feel a sense of lack or need. You're not actually waiting for your desire to manifest, because in your imagination it already has. You're simply enjoying the state, savoring the feeling of your wish fulfilled. This is true detachment. It's not about not caring whether your desire manifests. It's about knowing that it has already manifested on the level of imagination, which is the only reality. The outer world has no choice but to conform to this inner reality in divine timing and divine order. Now, I want to address a question that often arises when I speak about these principles. Some of you might be wondering, but Neville, what about morality? What if someone uses this power for selfish or harmful purposes? To that, I say the law is neutral. Like gravity doesn't distinguish between what we might consider good or bad. It simply responds to the state we occupy. But I assure you that when you truly understand and apply these principles, you will have no desire to harm others or to act selfishly. You see, as you begin to experience your own divine nature, as you realize your oneness with all of creation, your desires naturally align with the highest good. You begin to understand that what blesses one blesses all, that there is no separation between you and others. Moreover, you realize that you don't need to take from others to have what you want. You don't need to compete or struggle. You simply need to assume the state of having or being what you desire, and the universe will respond accordingly. This understanding leads to a profound shift in consciousness. You move from a mindset of lack and limitation to one of abundance and infinite possibility. You realize that there is more than enough for everyone, that one person's gain doesn't have to mean another's loss. Now, as we near the end of our time together, I want to leave you with a final thought. The principles I've shared with you today are not new. They are as old as consciousness itself. They have been taught by mystics and sages throughout the ages, often veiled in symbolic language. What I've attempted to do is to present these timeless truths in a clear, practical way that you can apply in your daily life. But remember, the real proof of these principles lies not in my words, but in your experience. I encourage you, my dear friends, to test these ideas for yourself. Choose a safe side, create your scene, and live from that state. Persist even when outer appearances seem to contradict your imaginal act. Have faith in the law. Have faith in your own divine nature. And as you do this, as you begin to experience the power of your imagination to shape your reality, you will undergo profound transformation. You will begin to understand, not just intellectually, but experientially, that you are the operant power in your life. You will realize that the universe is not something separate from you, but a loving, responsive extension of your own consciousness. This realization, my friends, is true freedom. It's the key to creating the life you desire, to becoming the person you want to be. It's the secret to making the universe respond. Remember, the world is yourself pushed out. Everything you experience is a reflection of your own consciousness. Change your consciousness and you change your world. This is the great secret, the great law. It has always been so, and it will always be so. As you leave here today, I urge you to carry this knowledge with you. Let it infuse every aspect of your life. Use your imagination lovingly and wisely. Create beautiful states for yourself and for others. Live from the state of your wishes fulfilled. For in doing so, you are not just changing your own life. You are participating in the grand dance of creation. You are fulfilling your divine purpose. You are making the universe respond, not just to your individual desires, but to the highest and best possibilities for all of creation. Go forth, my dear friends, and create wonderfully. For you are the makers of your world, the authors of your destiny. The power is within you. The time is now. The choice is yours. Thank you, and may your imagination be blessed. My dear wonderful friends, tonight I shall share with you the most powerful secret in all of creation, how to speak to yourself in a way that will completely transform your world in just 3 days. Not in 3 months, not in 3 years, but in 3 days. For you see, the power of your inner conversation is absolute, and it is the only true creative power in the universe. Now, when I tell you to talk to yourself, I am not speaking of the idle chatter that most engage in throughout their day. I speak of that inner conversation that is deliberate, conscious, and aligned with your desired state. For your inner conversation is your consciousness externalized, and your consciousness is God. Consider the words of Scripture. In the beginning was the Word. These words are not speaking of some external deity's utterance. They speak of your inner word, your inner conversation. For you are the operant power, and your inner conversation is the word that creates all things. Many of you come to me asking, Neville, how long must I wait to see my desires manifest? And I tell you now, give yourself 3 days of proper inner conversation, and you will see your world begin to transform. For 3 is the number of completion in Scripture. And when you maintain the proper inner conversation for 3 days, you set in motion forces beyond your current understanding. Let me share with you exactly how to conduct this inner conversation. First, you must understand that your inner conversation must be from the end. You do not speak of what you want to be true. You speak as though what you desire is already true. This is the great secret that most of the world has missed. When you wake in the morning of your first day, your inner conversation must be from the state of your wish fulfilled. If you desire wealth, your inner conversation must be that of a wealthy person. If you desire health, your inner conversation must be that of a healthy person. If you desire love, your inner conversation must be that of someone who is deeply loved. But, and this is crucial, your inner conversation must feel natural. It must not be strained or forced. For feeling is the secret, and your inner conversation must be accompanied by the feeling of naturalness. Let me give you a perfect example from Scripture. When David spoke to Goliath, his inner conversation was not, I hope I can win, or I will try my best. His inner conversation was from the state of victory already achieved. This is why he could say with complete conviction, this day will the Lord deliver thee into mine hand. Now, for these 3 days, you must guard your inner conversation as though your life depends upon it, because it does. Every time you catch yourself engaging in inner conversation that contradicts your desired state, you must immediately revise it. This is not a suggestion. This is a command if you wish to see your world transform. Consider this, every outer conversation you have is first an inner conversation. Every relationship you have is first an inner conversation. Every circumstance in your life is first an inner conversation. Therefore, by changing your inner conversation for just 3 days, you literally change the entire substance from which your world is created. Let me tell you how to structure your inner conversation throughout these 3 days. In the morning, your first inner words must be from the state of your wish fulfilled, before you open your eyes, before you move a muscle. Engage in the inner conversation of the person you wish to be. If you desire wealth, your inner conversation might be, I am so grateful for my abundant life. Money flows to me easily and continuously. I am surrounded by prosperity. But remember, these words must not be mere affirmations. They must be spoken with a feeling of knowing that they are already true. Throughout your day, your inner conversation must maintain the same level of conviction. When challenges arise, and they will arise, your inner conversation must remain steadfast. If someone speaks of lack, your inner conversation must be of abundance. If someone speaks of illness, your inner conversation must be of health. This is where most fail in their attempt to change their world. They allow their inner conversation to be pulled into the current circumstances rather than maintaining the conversation of their desired state. But I tell you now, circumstances have no power over your inner conversation unless you give them that power. For these 3 days, you must be relentless in maintaining your new inner conversation. When you walk down the street, your inner conversation must be from your desired state. When you eat your meals, your inner conversation must be from your desired state. When you prepare for sleep, your inner conversation must be from your desired state. Let me share with you a principle that I have tested and proven countless times. Your inner conversation is the only reality. Everything else, absolutely everything, is a shadow of your inner conversation pushed out. Therefore, when you maintain the proper inner conversation for 3 days, you literally create a new world. Many of you may be thinking, but Neville, 3 days seems too short a time to change my entire world. Let me remind you of the story of Jonah. How long was he in the belly of the whale? 3 days. And after 3 days, he was transformed, and his world was transformed. This is not coincidence, my dear friends. This is law. 3 days of proper inner conversation is all that is required to set in motion the forces that will transform your world. But these must be 3 complete days, not 3 days of wavering between states. During these 3 days, you must guard your inner conversation, not just in your waking hours, but as you fall asleep. For the last inner conversation you have before sleep is particularly powerful. It continues to echo through your subconscious mind throughout your sleep. Therefore, as you prepare for sleep during these 3 days, your inner conversation must be perfectly aligned with your desired state. If you desire a successful business, your inner conversation might be, I am so grateful for my thriving business. My customers are delighted with our services. Profits increase continuously. But remember, and this is crucial, your inner conversation must be accompanied by the feeling of naturalness. It must feel as natural to have this conversation as it feels to speak of what you had for breakfast. This is where the power lies, not in the words themselves, but in the feeling of naturalness that accompanies them. Let me share with you another principle. Your inner conversation creates your outer conversations. Therefore, during these 3 days, you must be particularly vigilant about your outer conversations as well. They must align with your new inner conversation. If someone asks you how you are, your response must come from your desired state. If someone speaks to you about problems or difficulties, your response must come from your desired state. Your outer conversation must be a perfect reflection of your new inner conversation. Many of you may find this challenging at first. You may be tempted to engage in conversations about current circumstances rather than your desired state. But I tell you now, this is where your power lies in maintaining your new conversation regardless of appearances. Consider the story of Jesus walking on water. What was his inner conversation? Was it about the impossibility of walking on water? Was it about the danger of the storms? No, his inner conversation was from the state of mastery over all natural laws, and his outer world had to conform to this inner conversation. During these 3 days, you must maintain the same level of conviction in your inner conversation. You must speak to yourself as though your desired state is already your reality, not as though it will be, not as though it might be, but as though it is. Let me share with you how to handle doubts when they arise during these 3 days, and they will arise. When a doubt appears in your mind, do not fight it. Instead, immediately revise your inner conversation. If you catch yourself saying inwardly, "This isn't working," immediately revise it to, "Everything is working perfectly. My world is transforming now." This revision must be immediate and complete. You cannot allow doubt to linger in your inner conversation. For remember, your inner conversation is the only reality. Therefore, a doubting inner conversation will create a doubting outer reality. Throughout these 3 days, your inner conversation must be dominated by gratitude. Not gratitude for what you hope will come, but gratitude for what is already yours in your desired state. This gratitude must be part of your inner conversation throughout the day. When you wake in the morning, your inner conversation must be filled with gratitude. When you go about your daily activities, your inner conversation must be filled with gratitude. When you prepare for sleep, your inner conversation must be filled with gratitude. Let me share with you another principle. Your inner conversation creates your inner states, and your inner states create your outer world. Therefore, during these 3 days, your inner conversation must create and maintain the inner state of your wish fulfilled. If you desire wealth, your inner conversation must create and maintain the inner state of wealth consciousness. If you desire health, your inner conversation must create and maintain the inner state of health consciousness. If you desire love, your inner conversation must create and maintain the inner state of being loved. Many of you may be wondering what to do if you slip in your inner conversation during these 3 days. Let me be very clear, you must not condemn yourself. Instead, immediately revise the conversation. Remember, you are training yourself to maintain a new inner conversation, and like any training, it requires practice. During these 3 days, your inner conversation must be your primary focus. Every other activity must be secondary to maintaining your new inner conversation, for you are literally recreating your world through this conversation. Let me share with you how to structure your inner conversation for specific desires. If you desire a new home, your inner conversation might be, "I love living in my beautiful new home. Everything about it is perfect for me." If you desire a promotion, your inner conversation might be, "I am so grateful for my new position. It's everything I desired and more." But remember, these are not mere words. They must be accompanied by the feeling of living in that new home, the feeling of working in that new position. For feeling is the secret, and your inner conversation must generate the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Throughout these 3 days, your inner conversation must be specific. Vague inner conversation creates vague results. Therefore, speak to yourself with clarity about your desired state. Be specific in your inner conversation about what you are grateful for, what you are experiencing, what you are enjoying in your desired state. Let me share with you another principle. Your inner conversation creates your self-concept, and your self-concept creates your world. Therefore, during these 3 days, your inner conversation must be about who you are, not just what you have. If you desire success, your inner conversation must be about being a successful person, not just about having success. If you desire abundance, your inner conversation must be about being an abundant person, not just about having money. If you desire love, your inner conversation must be about being a loved person, not just about having a relationship. During these 3 days, your inner conversation must be continuous, not in the sense of constant chatter, but in the sense of consistent alignment with your desired state. Every time you become aware of your inner conversation, it must be from your desired state. Let me share with you how to maintain this continuity. Set reminders for yourself throughout the day. Every time you look at your watch, every time you eat a meal, every time you enter a room, let these be triggers to check your inner conversation. But remember, your inner conversation must not be mechanical. It must be alive with feeling, rich with the emotion of your desired state, for it is the feeling that gives power to your inner conversation. Throughout these 3 days, your inner conversation must be sovereign. You must not allow anyone or anything to dictate your inner conversation. Not circumstances, not other people's opinions, not past experiences. Nothing must have power over your inner conversation except you. Let me share with you another principle. Your inner conversation creates your expectations, and your expectations create your experience. Therefore, during these 3 days, your inner conversation must create the highest expectations of good for yourself. Many of you may be thinking, but Neville, what if my desired state seems impossible? Let me remind you, nothing is impossible to your inner conversation. Your inner conversation is God in action, and to God all things are possible. During these 3 days, your inner conversation must be about possibility, not probability. You must speak to yourself from the state of your wish fulfilled, regardless of how probable or improbable may seem to your rational mind. Let me share with you how to handle apparent failures during these 3 days. If something happens that seems to contradict your desired state, your inner conversation must remain unchanged. You must speak to yourself as though the seeming failure is actually part of the perfect unfolding of your desire. Remember, your inner conversation is creating your reality, not the other way around. Therefore, no external circumstance has the power to change your inner conversation unless you give it that power. Throughout these 3 days, your inner conversation must be your constant companion. It must be the lens through which you view every experience, the filter through which you interpret every event, the standard by which you measure every circumstance. Let me share with you another principle. Your inner conversation creates your belief system, and your belief system creates your reality. Therefore, during these 3 days, your inner conversation must consistently reinforce the beliefs that support your desired state. During these 3 days, your inner conversation must be a perfect reflection of the person you wish to be. You must speak to yourself as that person would speak, think as that person would think, feel as that person would feel. Let me share with you how to maintain this level of consciousness. When you catch yourself speaking from your old state, immediately ask yourself, how would I be speaking to myself if I were already the person I wish to be? Then revise your inner conversation accordingly. Throughout these 3 days, your inner conversation must be about what is, not what was or what might be. You must speak to yourself in the present tense from the state of your wish fulfilled. This is crucial for the manifestation of your desire. Let me share with you another principle. Your inner conversation creates your future, but it does so by creating your present. Therefore, during these 3 days, your inner conversation must make your desired future your present reality. Many of you may be wondering what will happen after these 3 days. Let me tell you, if you have maintained the proper inner conversation for 3 days, you will have set in motion forces that must result in the manifestation of your desire. During these 3 days, your inner conversation must be your primary tool for creation. Every other method, every other technique, every other approach must be secondary to maintaining your new inner conversation. Let me share with you how to know if your inner conversation is correct. If it feels natural, if it feels real, if it feels true, even in the face of contrary evidence, then your inner conversation is correct. Throughout these 3 days, your inner conversation must be protected like a precious jewel. You must guard it against doubt, against fear, against negativity. For your inner conversation is the very substance from which your world is created. Let me share with you another principle. Your inner conversation creates your relationship with yourself, and your relationship with yourself creates all other relationships. Therefore, during these 3 days, your inner conversation must reflect the highest, most loving relationship with yourself. During these 3 days, your inner conversation must be your sacred practice. You must treat it with the same reverence that a priest treats his prayers, that a scientist treats his experiments, that an artist treats his creations. Let me share with you how to maintain this level of devotion. See your inner conversation as your direct connection to the creative power of the universe. For that is exactly what it is. Your consciousness in action, creating your world. Throughout these 3 days, your inner conversation must be your constant reminder of who you really are, the operant power in your world, the creator of reality, the God of your universe. And that, my dear friends, is how you must talk to yourself for 3 days if you wish to transform your world. Not sometimes, not occasionally, but consistently, continuously, constantly. For your inner conversation is the word of God in action, and it cannot return void. Remember this, your world is your inner conversation pushed out. Therefore, guard your inner conversation for these 3 days, as though your life depends upon it, because it does. So what will you do with this knowledge? Will you continue with your old inner conversation, creating the same results you've always created? Or will you begin today, this moment, to maintain a new inner conversation that must create a new world? The choice is yours, but the law is absolute. Your inner conversation creates your reality. Therefore, speak to yourself for 3 days as though your desires are already fulfilled, and watch your world transform. That's the message I want to leave you tonight. Not because it's easy, but because it's true. Not because it's simple, but because it's powerful. Not because it's what you expected to hear, but because it's what you needed to hear. Remember, 3 days of proper inner conversation will transform your world. Every single time. And isn't that worth thinking about?